Hi everybody. In this series of video exercises, we will explore the accounting for finance and operating leases. Please do two things before completing the Chapter 15 study guide exercises. First, be sure you have thoroughly read Chapter 15 in your textbook and worked through some of the exercises provided in the chapter. You will need a thorough understanding of the chapter, as this video will present only some of the chapter highlights. Second, download the Excel file embedded on the page on which you found this video, so you can complete the worksheets as you watch the video. This video will discuss the accounting for a fairly straightforward finance lease. As always, you will get the most value from these study guide examples if you will take time to pause the video and prepare the calculations and journal entries. Then start the video again to check your answer. If you got it right, you'll feel great. If you didn't get it right, there will be a detailed analysis of the correct answer that should give you an opportunity to understand and learn from your error. Let's start out with VHF Industries. At the beginning of 20X1, VHF Industries acquired a machine with a fair value of $6,074,700 by signing a 4-year lease. The lease is payable in 4 annual payments of $2 million each at the end of each year. The lease is treated as a finance lease. The first thing you need to do is calculate the effective rate of interest implicit in the agreement. I'll give you a couple of hints. You need to calculate a factor, and that factor is calculated by dividing $6,074,700 by one of the $2 million payments. When you calculate that factor, then, you need to look at the present value of an ordinary annuity table where n equals 4. Where that factor and row 4 intersects is your effective interest rate. Please do that calculation and start your video again to check your answer. Did you come up with an effective interest rate of 12%? If you did, then you already know this calculation. If you did not, here is the calculation. This is an ordinary annuity where n equals 4. $6,074,700 divided by $2 million equals a factor of 3.03735. Look at the present value table of an ordinary annuity table and read row 4 to the right until you spot a factor close to our factor. At the intersection of row 4 and our factor is the 12% column. Let's take a look at the present value of an ordinary annuity table. Present value of an ordinary annuity, table 4, year 4, n equals 4. Reading over to the right, looking for our factor of 3.03735, we're not even close. So it's going to be at a higher interest rate. Instead of just spreading the video out where all these numbers will become very, very small, give me a moment and I will move the entire video over on the present value table. So continuing to read row 4 over to the right, still looking for our factor, and there it is, 3.03735. And it intersects with the 12% column. Therefore, the effective interest rate on this lease, implicit in the lease, is 12%. Next, you need to prepare the lessee's journal entry at the beginning of the lease. Pause the video, restart the video when you have your journal entry written. Debit a right-of-use asset for the fair value of the machine, $6,074,700, and credit lease payable for the same amount. Now we need to prepare the journal entry to record the first lease payment at the end of the first year on December 31st, X1. Couple of hints. This is your lease liability. Your interest rate is 12%, simple annual interest. You're calculating interest for the entire year. So you can easily calculate your interest expense. You know that your payment is $2 million. It told you that in the body of the problem. Each payment is $2 million. The difference between the interest expense and the $2 million payment is a reduction of the lease liability. Go ahead and write your journal entry. Then start the video again to check your work. The liability at the beginning of year 1 was $6,074,700 times 12% equals $728,964 of interest expense for year 1. Debit interest expense, credit cash for the full $2 million payment, and the difference between the two is a debit to lease payable. So you've just paid off almost $1.3 million of this lease liability. When we calculate our interest for year 2, you need to reduce this $6 million and change liability at the beginning of the lease by the amount that you reduced the principal balance of the lease in year 2. And here's that calculation. Let me get it in red so it stands out. $6,074,700 at the beginning of year 1 minus the amount applied to principal in year 1 equals a liability at the end of year 1 after the first payment of $4,803,664 times 12%. Interest expense then for year 2 is $576,440. Go ahead and record the journal entry for year 2. Debit interest expense for $576,440. Credit cash $2 million. And the difference is debited to lease payable. Let's change the facts a little bit. Suppose at the beginning of the lease period, the fair value of the machine and the lessor's implicit interest rates were not known, but the lessee's incremental borrowing rate of interest for notes of similar risk was 11%. Prepare the journal entry at the beginning of the lease. Everything's the same except these differences. Well, we don't need to calculate the interest rate implicit in the lease because we were given that in this problem, 11%. But what we do need to find is the present value of 4 payments of $2 million each, where N equals 4 and I equals 11%. Using the present value of an ordinary annuity table, we find a factor of 3.10245. we multiply one payment of $2 million times that factor, and we have a present value of the equipment at $6,204,900. And here's the journal entry. Debit right of use asset, $6,204,900, and credit lease payable, $6,204,900. Let's take a look at this factor. Present value of an ordinary annuity table, where N equals 4 and I equals 11. Table 4, present value of an ordinary annuity, where N equals 4, and then reading over till we get to the 11% column. 3.10245. Well, that's all for this video. When we come back, we'll work a little bit more complex problem with an operating lease. See you next time.